Welcome aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. What do we have on tap today? Well, we've got a built rent day, and we've also got our first chance to talk about the Southwest and Spirit changes. While these changes have been around for a few weeks, Richard and I have been all over the world and back and haven't had a chance to sit down together and talk about these changes. So we're going to dig into all of that. But first, some housekeeping notes, and one of them involves you, Mr. Kerr. Can you believe that?
Uh-oh. This never leads to something good, so we'll see.
Well, as part of our intro, we always talk about the fact that we love it when you guys leave us reviews and ratings. Those help us get the podcast out to a wider audience. And there's a link in the show notes where you can click on that link, and in 30 seconds, you can leave us a review and a rating. And we have one, Richard, from I Live Here 2000.
Okay. This is where we're going.
Get the
Buckle up,
soapbox out.
ladies and gentlemen.
All right, 5-star review. I've been listening for several years now on Sunday mornings while doing some chores. I've learned so much about earning and using points, turning this info into some great travel experiences that I never thought would be possible for me. Love that part of it, but I love the next part even more. Because I only listened to the podcast, I had a very specific mental image of Richard with his deep Southern accent and general burly persona. They recently changed the podcast cover image that now shows the hosts' faces. Well, Sunday mornings will never be the same again. Still 5 stars, though.
That is such a brutal roast. Like,
I love every moment.
What's their user? What's this? Remind me of the username again.
I Live Here 2000.
I Live Here 2000. I want to directly address you. I Live Here 2000. First of all, let me say thank you so much for listening to the podcast and leaving us a 5-star review.
and seeing the cover art too.
I want to apologize for just what has sounded like such a monumental letdown of what you were hoping for, and now Sunday mornings will never be the same. Well, look, let's just imagine we didn't change that cover image to a photo, and you go back to the Richard that you've known for the last several years, and I Live Here 2000. I want you to have fantastic Sunday mornings moving forward. And to everybody listening, look, I'm a good-looking guy. Like, I am just so, that was such a brutal roast. Sunday mornings will never be the same again after I saw. Wow. Thank you so much for including that. I am not going to show my wife this.
Don't you worry. I'll take care of that for you.
Oh, man. Brutal. You guys are brutal out there.
Thank goodness for the visual arts that we provide on a weekly basis, which, you can watch on YouTube and see Richard, not just in cover art. You can see us make funny faces at the screen, and you can see all kinds of other things, including that wonderful background you have, Mr. Kerr. I'm going to try and be nice to you, so I'm going to say that you have a really nice background.
Well, I'm going to let everybody else who's watching in on a little secret. If you look at the hat that I have on, this is my son's Little League hat from when I coached last year, and you'll notice that it looks like my hat is crooked or my headphones are crooked, but it's not. It is that this logo is off-centered and tilted just enough where now that I pointed that out to you, you're not going to be able to look at anything else. It's going to drive you crazy. You'll be like, hey, he needs to fix his hat. But my hat is on straight. It is just they misprinted this logo, and it drives everybody crazy once I point that out. So you should be watching on YouTube if you're just listening to this.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I deal with on a weekly basis, and I just want to share for all the folks who
this
are. This
is what I Live Here 2000 deals with as well.
Well, now, but just to be clear, I have lived with this for hundreds of episodes at this point. So just to be absolutely clear, we do need somebody to go back in the Wayback Machine and find out when the first time you appeared on the show is, so I can count exactly how many times I've had to share in the cover art that is Richard Kerr.
It's brutal. Sunday mornings will never be the same now that I saw him. Jeez.
I love every minute of it. All right, rest of the housekeeping stuff. If you want to text us or leave us a voicemail, 571-293-6659. We talked about leaving a review in the show notes, which is super helpful. You can also be a part of our Slack community if you want to get tips from experts like Richard and I and hang out with a bunch of like-minded folks about talking about the world of travel. It's our version of Patreon. You can find those links in the show notes. We do mostly weekly happy hours. I had to skip this week, drop our daughter off at college. We do weekly happy hours, as well as a couple of meetups a year where we all get together and talk about all this fun travel stuff. Lastly, if you're watching or listening, hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening, because that's a big help to us as well. So Richard, let's
I'm
talk about
super impressed
Southwest.
that you're holding it together, man. Before we get to Southwest, Ed dropped his daughter off for her freshman year at Virginia Tech, the Virginia Institute of Technology down in Blacksburg. Look, man, I'm proud of you. You're holding it together. Like, I think you've only cried 2 or 3 times, which is fine. Everybody needs to be a little vulnerable here on the Miles to Go podcast.
Probably more at this point.
But good for you, man. Like, are you feeling... Is the house feeling a little bit lighter down one? Is your son, like, is he like the puppy that's missing his older dog friend?
Oh, he loves the fact that he has full reign of the house without a sister. I'll say we were solid leaving our daughter. My wife had figured that she could hold the tears back until we got in the car. But as we were walking out and giving her the last hug, she's like, "Oh, wait a second, hold on." And she went to her bag and she pulled out these letters. She had written letters to my wife and I, and they said, "Don't read until car ride home." Well, that was when my wife, that was the one little bit that my wife needed, but I've got that letter here. And while I won't share it on the show, I will say she reminded me of something in that letter, which I hadn't even thought of. And we're going to experience this for the first time after you and I are done recording, because I'm headed to the airport. For the last 10 years or so, our daughter, she's always had, some anxiety and found ways to deal with it. And she never loved it when I left. So we developed this routine when I left. It might sound corny to some, but for my daughter and I, it was a pretty special thing. She would push my car down the driveway, and then she would stand at the bottom of the driveway and she would wave at me. And my role was to wave all the way up the hill while I tapped on the horn and then give her one last beep as I turned the corner and she couldn't see me anymore. And that always gave her some level of comfort that she sort of like sent me off on my trip. And as she noted in her letter, we're not going to be doing that anymore because she doesn't live here. So starting today, I'm going to have to find a new way to connect with her when I'm traveling. So house is a little quieter.
Well, there you go, man. Like, I don't want my kids to leave. That's going to be brutal in a few years.
It is. It is a very different feeling. You're proud as a dad because you want to see them accomplish all that stuff. But there's all these little things that you've developed with them as routines. And then you're going to be like, well, wait a second. We don't do that anymore.
Speaking of not doing that anymore, Southwest is not going to be doing a lot of things that they've done since their inception.
They are not. So I'm going to tee up here the high level changes, and then I want to give you first whack at opinions on these. So what we know, and we don't know everything so far, what we do know is that there will be assigned seating in some way, shape, or form. We believe that about a third of the seats will have extra legroom to be defined. What extra legroom is. Southwest already offers more legroom now. They still intend to have a roughly similar boarding process in terms of the numbers and the boarding groups. And then probably the other big deal is Southwest is finally going to roll out red-eye flights. And they're just started loading these into their schedule, and they anticipate this, continuing to ramp up through 2025. So I'm going to take a quick pause there and get your initial opinions, Mr. Kerr.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. So there's a lot going on in the background of the finances of Southwest, right? They've got, people trying to come in and take seats on the board, performance not so well, technology really lagging behind. And I think it was time that Southwest try and change something based on the preferences of their demographic. Now, there's a couple surveys that their CEO referenced when they came out with this. It says 80% of customers prefer assigned seats, 86% of potential customers prefer assigned seats, and open seating is the number one reason customers defect to competitors, which I can understand, right? Especially if you're going on a flight that's over like an hour and a half. Like, you would like to know and not be sweating the whole time that you got to check in, try and get a high boarding group, try and get the seat that you want. You're running late, you're not there at the boarding time, and you're boarding, you're like, it can just lead to a really uncomfortable situation. I certainly don't want to be in a middle seat for, a flight to Hawaii or something like that. So I think it makes sense. A lot of people, did like the open seating, especially for like families and stuff. If you're booking last minute, you don't have to worry about trying to find seats with 3 or 4 of you together.
Right.
Then you got to sweat that whole kind of deal again. If your kids are over 6, and you don't get to do family boarding anymore, like we used to do, but now my kids are all over 6. So, I get it. It makes sense. The fact that they don't think boarding is going to take any longer is super interesting to me. It's definitely going to take longer. So we'll be curious to see how that plays out. Everybody, it's a change, man. Everybody's going to the same model that I think they see working for the legacy carriers. You're moving to a premium bundle, so they're adding the premium legroom seats. It's going to be some kind of business light product that's going to go with their business select fares that gives you the refundability and drinks and Wi-Fi. Same thing we've seen Frontier do. Same thing we've seen Spirit do, which we're going to talk about next. Like everybody seems to think like this is the way to make money. Everybody seems to think that low-cost carriers are struggling. And Southwest, by the way, as you and I know, are not low-cost carriers. Like it is almost complete fare parity here out of Atlanta with Delta for every route that Southwest flies. And they got a pretty big footprint here in Atlanta now. So like I don't ever look to Southwest to be any cheaper than everybody else, but it's just a different experience. So on one hand, like some nostalgia in me, like I've flown Southwest for a long time. That was like the place we lived when my kids were little. Was a little bit sad. I did enjoy like the ability to buy up to A1 to A15 and, get, first on the plane and one of those seats up front in the aisle or window, whatever you want. But now I'm sure you'll be able to pay for that. So kind of a shame to see like another differentiating factor being taken out of the market. But if that means that Southwest continues to be able to be in business, then so be it. But I don't know, man. Like my question to you would be if they're going to just like everybody else, and if they're going to add this premium legroom that's going to have to be at the sacrifice of all the other seats in the plane. Like the plane's not getting any longer. So, they're going to lose that generous pitch for everybody else. Like what would make you fly Southwest now over any legacy carrier if they're just moving to the same model as anybody else? Like why pick one, really any airline over the other?
It's a good question. And I'll answer that question. And then I want to offer my thoughts on these changes as well. I think that the reason to pick Southwest going forward, it is actually diminished to some degree. At that point, I think it becomes much more driven on schedule and price. Now, for Southwest, on some routes, that's helpful to them because others might have been choosing a legacy airline because they didn't want to mess with, assigned seating and all that stuff. So, and I think, to your point about the legroom, still to be defined whether they're going to use thinner seats or they're going to reduce the legroom. So they could still end up with more quote unquote legroom in their regular seats than the legacy carriers. But if they don't, and it's the same, to your point, it's another point of differentiation that Southwest doesn't have anymore. And, I've been around long enough to remember when American Airlines rolled out more room throughout coach, which was before United had Economy Plus. And they provided more legroom in every seat on the plane, but just didn't do a great job marketing it, and the customers didn't really get it, and they had to abandon it. And I think a lot of this with Southwest is communication. You mentioned about Southwest not being the cheapest airline on many routes, but they do offer 2 free check bags on their flights. So if you check bags, if you're a family traveler or a business traveler that needs that check bag, they probably are cheaper because they're at fare parity, but they're not going to charge you $50, $60, $70 for a bag. So it really does depend on what product you're buying. Now, if I think about the changes, I would say I would look at the changes in sort of 3 buckets. I think red eyes is a bucket. I think this concept behind premium seating is a bucket. And then the concept of assigned seating. And I would take all those 3 real quick. First off, red eyes, I'm 100% behind both as a customer and from an airline perspective. From a business standpoint, this. You can't really fly Southwest from Hawaii to the East Coast. It just doesn't work because they don't have red eyes. So your ability to connect is almost zero. Like there's a handful of ways to do it. But from a flight timing standpoint, if you can't get a red-eye flight off the islands, you can't get home same day. And so now you're buying 2 separate tickets because Southwest doesn't sell overnight connecting tickets. So it just makes it messy. I think adding red eyes will help customers. And I also think it will help the airline generate revenue it can't generate now. Not it's going to be able to charge more because people don't usually pay more for red eyes, but more people will fly Southwest to Hawaii than just West Coasters. I think if you're an East Coaster, you weren't flying Hawaii on Southwest.
Yeah, you can get there. Like there are some one-stop things out of Atlanta.
You can get there.
But to your point, getting home, you're not flying Southwest. Which
and everybody
again,
thinks about everybody thinks about
like,
flights as round trips. Most people don't think of them like you and I as well. I'll fly out on Southwest and back on American. They're looking for round
that's
trip
where everybody
flights.
messes up, as we know. Flights should only ever be booked domestically as one ways. Everybody stop booking round trip flights.
100%. But to that
dude,
point,
I'm not flying domestic red eyes, man. Like I don't know how you do it. Like I am not like a 3-hour flight time from Vegas. Like you're wrecked for 2 days afterwards. Like I don't.
Yeah, I agree. But I think it's important. But I think it's important for them to be able to build Hawaii into the market they expect it to be. Just like the inter-island flying is important to them. So that's the red eye bucket. Premium seating. This is an area where I'll stipulate to some degree that I'm not 100% sure why Southwest feels the need to roll this out. I don't think the premium seating part is going to be as lucrative as they think it's going to be. There's a cross-section of people that don't care about flying first class, there's also a cross-section of people who are business travelers are flying. Like if I'm going Denver to Vegas, I don't care what seat I'm in. Just get me there. If I'm going Vegas to Reno, I don't care. Just get me there. Sure, if I'm flying Baltimore to Vegas, I have more concern. But, I'm not sure that premium seating is going to bring them the quote-unquote premium that they're looking for. That's probably of these three buckets, the one that I feel like is the weakest. So I'm still... jury's still out for me on whether premium seating is helpful to them or whether this just buys them time to figure out what's next because they're copying something that's quote-unquote proven for the legacies. But in reality, Southwest has had decent yields. I understand they may not be making as much money as they might otherwise want to, but I just don't see that they're going to be able to turn a third of the plane into, significantly more valuable real estate. Again, could be wrong.
I mean, the premium seating is going to come with premium prices, which goes back to my question of if you're paying a premium price, are you going to pick Southwest premium or are you going to pick Delta or United or American first class? Like, we're going to have to see what these fares are, but if I'm spending that much money, why would I choose Southwest over anybody else except for schedule? But yeah, I agree with your point there on the premium fares.
And I think this will be even more exacerbated when we talk about Spirit. But so lastly, this assigned seating bucket. Man, I'm really conflicted on this because I understand the benefit of assigned seating, but you and I fly legacy carriers all day long, and you and I know the biggest risk for us in booking family travel on a legacy carrier, because you and I have, I would say flexible, but our schedule changes on a regular basis. Sometimes you and I are booking trips last minute. I'm never getting 3 seats together on a United flight a couple weeks out. I'll be hard-pressed to get 2 seats together. And I'm Global Services. I got free access to Economy Plus. It's just not happening with today's load factors. So the downside to assigned seating, in my opinion, is you lose this ability on Southwest to buy the privilege to have seats together late in the booking process. If I buy early bird boarding, I might not be in the first 10 or 15 rows of the plane, but I am guaranteed to get seats beside my family, because I'm going to be one of the first 30 to 45 people on a 150-seat plane. And I really hope Southwest keeps some of that, because if the whole plane is assigned seating, then they fall into the same pit that United, American, and Delta have, which is based on their pricing matrix and trying to force people to buy a seat assignment because they block out so many of the back rows until check-in. There just aren't seats together on domestic flights in coach. There just aren't, unless you're booking months and months in advance. And Southwest, you've always had this ability to make
a bunch of bucks,
a last minute decision. A bunch. And so I really struggle with assigned seating being a plus for Southwest, because, they make a ton of money off of early bird boarding. So now you say, well, we're pulling down the early bird boarding bucket and we're putting in this assigned seating bucket. You better be able to get a premium on those seats, because you're going to have some customers who used to use you to fly, like take you as an example, Atlanta to Orlando with the family. If you know you can't get seats beside each other on those flights because you're looking at the seat map and you can already see what's assigned, you're less likely to book Southwest on that flight, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It goes back to, if you're going to turn yourself into everybody else, you have to have some kind of winning competitive advantage. And yeah, they go like everybody else again. I don't know why would I fly them compared to anybody else. So I really think it's going to come down to what do they do with fares when this stuff rolls out, and we obviously won't have the answer to that for still a while.
All right, well, let's leave it there on Southwest. I want to talk a bit about rent day. We're in one of those unique windows with the calendar where we're actually going to record and drop the episode after you guys have announced rent day, but before rent day actually happens. So we'll talk about Spirit in just a second, but tell folks what's coming up for rent day. I think this is a pretty valuable one. I'm still not sure if you're going to get me to dump all the miles out of my account just yet.
Yeah, well, like we promised last month, after making some changes to the rent day double points cap and removing the ability for people to get bonus points on taxes, which we can go to that if you want a second. If not, we promised that instead of paying what was amounting to 0.15% of our member base for bonus points, we would take those funds and make rent days even bigger and better. And that's what we did. So by the time you're listening to this, the day before, rent day benefits for Built will have launched. So we have best in market ever. Everybody, all Built members get 50% transfer bonus to Life Miles, which is their best in market that they've had. Virgin also coming in with the transfer bonus up to 100% based on your Built status. We have a deal with Resort Pass, which has over 1,000 resorts around U.S., Caribbean, Canada, where you can go and get a day pass, a spa pass, a pool chair. You can bring a friend on us. And like some of these day passes to like one of these awesome resorts, which I use at the Grand Hyatt in Kauai when we were staying in the rental house. It could be like $115. So it's a free $100 plus, depending on which resort that you pick. So if you guys are going down to Orlando and renting a condo and you want to go over to the JW Marriott Water Park for the day, something you should definitely take advantage of, or a lot of the other resorts that are down in those kinds of destinations, check it out. Resort Pass, bring a friend on us. The Virgin Voyages deal comes back where you get to bring +1 in your cabin on us, plus you get top tier status benefits from Virgin Voyages, which is a $100 bar credit, free premium Wi-Fi, a bunch of other really cool stuff, specialty coffees and things if you're going to take a Virgin Voyage. So like it is arguably the best way to book a cruise in market during the 5-day rent day period where, again, second person in your cabin is free, which we all know cruises charge per person, not by cabin. Plus status benefits is awesome. We've also got our first lockup with the Barstool Sports folks. We got Dave Portnoy on rent free. We have his One Bite Pizza Festivals coming up in September. We got a really lucrative way to get tickets to that in New York City using your built points at like over 2 cents per point. Great deal. And then we have a ton of dining experiences, again, which we just continue to get fantastic feedback from our members who redeem, again, very nominal amount of points worth over a cent per point for these like $150 per person dinners that we knock down to like 5,000, 6,000 points. You get drinks, you get a special tasting menu. A lot of them are hosted by a built staff. Again, everybody loves it. They're selling out now within minutes of being released. So make sure you look at those release times in the built app. But man, it's a pretty big rent day. Look, we're really excited about that. For the people listening to this podcast, everybody 50% to life miles. We all know that's a fantastic deal. Up to 100% to Virgin. That's absurd. I don't want people to get spoiled with this. Like, these are just ridiculous benefits and a reason that you should continue to participate in the Built platform. And just for everybody listening, we are not just a credit card company. That's kind of a mission that we're on here at Built. A lot of you got to tune in and spend an hour with our CEO and founder, Ankur, this week. We had over 50 media publications come in and listen to him. And like the deal is the platform's grown so big that whatever credit card that you have, you can to Built, and you should get your points on that credit card plus Built points and double dip if you're eating at a restaurant, taking a Lyft ride, taking a fitness class. Also, by the time this podcast launches, our Walgreens news will be announced. So Walgreens is now a part of Neighborhood Rewards. For every $1 that you spend at Walgreens, you get an extra bonus Built point on top of whatever credit card you use. If you buy Walgreens branded stuff, it's 2 points per $1. You switch a prescription over and get it refilled, 100 points every single time you get a prescription refilled. We have some really cool FSA, HSA technology to make it easier to use your HSA and FSA funds. So that's like you get Chase Freedom Unlimited like I do, 6X on drugstores plus 2X Built points if I'm buying Walgreens stuff or 1X everything else. Like, go and double dip, ladies and gentlemen. I still make money when you do that. So rent day, Walgreens, dude, you got a taste of it. We have a whole lot of stuff coming up this fall. Really excited about this. I'm going to dump a whole bunch of my Built points into Life Miles. Like, I got to spread these transfer bonuses out more because like I don't have enough time to replenish my points is a problem. So super excited about everything we have going on.
Yeah. I'm not going to go for Life Miles. I'm really tempted to go for Virgin. I think the timing is just a little bit off for me personally. I think this deal is incredible. And I think, I wish I knew a little bit more about what the schedule was going to look like with one kid in college and one kid at home, because being able to get a free companion on a Virgin Voyages cruise is high on my list for my wife and I to be able to get away somewhere. So I'm thinking that like if I can work that out between now and rent day, that's how I would push my points in, because not only getting the 100% bonus in the Virgin, but also getting that free companion is a big deal. As far as the Walgreens stuff is concerned and the double dipping, I mean, for me at least, this goes back to the early days of points and miles wonderfulness, where we used to have all kinds of opportunities to double dip. So I think you bring up a good point about the fact that you don't need the credit card to earn points in the program. But if you do, you've got some really interesting double dip opportunities. I'll also say, I haven't seen it rolled out yet. The demos that you showed on FSA and HSA, expenses, I think that could be really huge for folks who have those accounts available to them through work and making sure they spend all that money. Bottom line for me on this rent day is, nobody else is doing 100% transfer bonuses. They just aren't. And so, if you're wondering if there's value in the Built program, you don't need to have a couple 100,000 points in Built to make it valuable, because a lot of the partners that Built has are shared by other credit cards out there. So if you're not playing in the ecosystem, then you're continuing to miss out on these opportunities to get 50 and 100% transfer bonuses that just nobody else is offering. So that's my 2 cents. I'm wondering if come September 2nd, if my my built balance will be significantly lighter or not. It'll come down to trying to figure out this cruise. Maybe you could just watch my son for me. I'll just ship him down to you on a flight, and you could just hold on to him while we go on a Virgin Voyages cruise.
Hey, man, bring them on down. But I want to go on a cruise as well, so I'm trying to get the in-laws to watch my kids so that Mrs. Kerr and I can go. I've been doing deals with Virgin Voyages for 2 years now, and I still haven't had the opportunity to go because of calendars and adults only. So yeah, man, it's exciting. And I can tell everybody, like, everybody goes, oh, rent day's not going to be like, rent day is here to stay. We have some really cool stuff lined up for this fall. And everybody come participate in whatever way you want to, can in the built ecosystem.
Maybe we just do a swapsy where I ship my kid to you during my Virgin Voyages cruise, and you ship your kids to me during your Virgin Voyages cruise. And since our wives don't watch, we can just agree to it now, and we'll just say that they agreed.
Or just me and you can go and share a cabin, and we can leave. What? What was that?
We were doing so good. All right. Well, what a perfect way to pivot to Spirit Airlines. Let's go big, as they say at Spirit now, Richard. So brief,
a lot of changes coming out of Spirit.
Real brief look at what their changes are. They divide up into 4 categories now. You've got your Spirit Go seating, which is essentially what you get today, which is you get a seat on the plane and really just about nothing else. You can bring a very small bag that fits under the seat in front of you. They also have the Go Savvy, Go Comfy, and Go Big. Go Savvy is you get a carry-on or a check bag, and you get a seat assignment. Go Comfy gets you more leg room along with a snack and some priority boarding. And then Go Big is a big front seat along with some snacks and some early boarding and some Wi-Fi and all that stuff. So again, Richard, I'm going to tee you up to go first on how you feel about these changes.
Yeah, it just goes back more to everybody's kind of following the model and is the ultra low cost carrier in the U.S. With the changes of Frontier doing the same kind of deal, like what are we moving towards here? Couple of things is Go Comfy, the big thing there, which is the third of the 4th tiers. You do have the middle seat blocked, which for a long flight can be great if the big front seat's not available, because there's usually only 8 big front seats on a flight. But I'd say, man, what's been interesting that people have latched onto since this is launched, I think it's been about 10 days at the time of recording that these pricing packages have been out. They're not particularly any less expensive than the legacy carriers once you get up into like the Go Big package. Like it's the routes that I've searched out of Atlanta, what I booked to go to Vegas round trip would be significantly more expensive than the trip I just took a few weeks ago. You're looking at the same cost as Delta, Southwest, first class, almost using Spirit. And again, if you're going to be paying those prices, then Spirit has to have a competitive advantage to want you to make you book this. I'm of the opinion here, like this is a huge pricing shift. Anytime you do something like that is in an industry as complicated as airlines, it's going to take some time for whatever algorithms or pricing models that they are to find where they're going to be. So like I think they started somewhere and they would rather start high and come down rather than start low and gradually build it up. That's, again, I have no inside knowledge in that whatsoever. That's just my guess. But I mean, like just even comparing, Atlanta to New York flights on Spirit that I look at all the time, like September, which are the dates I'm looking at here at recording, it's a really down month for like, I've made a comment on Twitter, like, wow, like you can fly Delta or United for $59 from Atlanta to Newark in September. You can fly Delta and United first class I'm looking at here for like right at $200. Same route that the Spirit Go Big package, which is a big front seat, early boarding, bags, drinks, snacks, and Wi-Fi, is $175. So like, am I going to pay $25 less to fly Spirit instead of one of the legacy carriers first class? Probably not. And that really just comes down to you got no backup if something happens with that Spirit flight, right? I've got to have a backup for business trips most of the time. And if the price are almost parity, like I'm going to have to go with the legacy carrier so that I have a backup in case something happens with that flight. So, man, it's not particularly inexpensive anymore. Again, there's probably some learning that these pricing models have to do. There's a lot of folks out there saying Spirit's in real trouble here along with Frontier.
Yep.
So I'm just interested to see how it plays out and what happens with these prices. I do think the biggest thing I'm disappointed in is that you cannot book the cheapest fare and then just buy the big front seat anymore. You have to buy the Go Big package, and I think that's a swing and a miss. I think you made the point, maybe you're going to make it again. Like if they're already selling out the big front seat almost every flight, why do this? Just increase the price of the big front seat so that you can get that extra revenue versus people seeing this cost up front and like me going, hold on, it's only marginally cheaper or the same price as the legacy carrier. So I don't know, man. Kind of a bummer. I think everybody knows I'm a big low cost carrier fan here. Like again, not talking Southwest, talking Frontier, Spirit, because you can just get what you need and you can literally get A to B on a short flight for a whole family and it's cheap. I don't know if that's the case anymore.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the go big is a big miss. I think that they're already doing a pretty solid job of maximizing revenue on big front seat. Now, that's based on a sampling of routings. I obviously don't fly all their routings, and with some employees that fly some routings consistently on them. So maybe I have insight into 10 or 20 different routes, not 40 or 50 routes. But I see solid pricing. I listen to what you say about the pricing for big front seat, and I just don't see the big growth opportunity and revenue here when they're already filling most of those seats for a pretty hefty price. Now, you bring up a couple of good points. First off, how much more can they charge for this? And then second off, if there's price parity with a legacy carrier, you've got more options with Delta, United, or American to get you to your destination when something goes wrong. Spirit has improved their on-time performance significantly, but they still trail their competitors by, call it roughly 10 percentage points. Well, what does that mean? That means if you fly Spirit 10 times, one of those times you're going to have some sort of a delay. And when you have that event, if that event involves a broken plane, there isn't going to be a backup choice because they don't have the frequency and they don't have the hub network to get you there. If you're flying Atlanta to Vegas and there's a problem with the plane on Delta, you can get there through Minneapolis. You can get there through Salt Lake City. You don't have that option on Spirit. Generally speaking, with a much more point-to-point driven network, you just don't have that flexibility. So I think go big is a miss. For me, I don't really need to be on a Spirit plane any earlier. I don't need to be on any plane early, to be honest. But
nope.
Spirit planes
Board
typically
last.
have lots of overhead bag space available. So I don't need to board early. It's the only reason I board a plane early is to make sure I get a spot for my bag. And the pricing is so expensive for carry-ons. I've never had a problem putting my bag up on a Spirit flight. I don't want their drinks. I don't want their snacks. I'll buy my Wi-Fi. Now, Go Savvy and Go Comfy. I think there's some. I think those are good ideas for them. I think the block middle seat is brilliant. I think they should have done it a while ago. Frontier's doing this as well. Makes a ton of sense. So Go Savvy, Go Comfy, ton of sense. Go Big is just not who Spirit Airlines is.
No, I don't exactly. Like, I wouldn't buy the cheapest thing, and then I'll pay just for the a la carte big front seat, and I'm set. And if I need Wi-Fi, I'll buy it. The one thing that did surprise me, which again, like, Wi-Fi is a big deal, and we're flying to Vegas and back. But as you and Howie know from my texts, like, I pre-bought the Wi-Fi for the flight home from Vegas to Atlanta. I boarded the plane, and the flight attendant's immediately like, "Hey, everybody, there's no Wi-Fi in this flight." And I'm like, "Well, why did you pre-sell it to me?" Like, that would be a huge thing for, this Go Big package, which I was under the impression that the Spirit fleet was complete being loaded out with Wi-Fi. Apparently, I don't know if it was just down or whatever. I meant to look at the side of the plane where they have that sticker that says Wi-Fi on board. When I got off, I forgot to look. So I didn't know if this was a plane that just a one-liner or if they are indeed done with their complete retrofit. Not the end of the world. I had downloaded stuff anyways, and I had a nice 3.5 hours unconnected, but it was during the workday, and that's a bummer. Point being, if you're going to pay business prices, you got to be connected. And not that the legacy carriers get it right all the time, as you and I know from United, but still, at least in my experience, most of the time, it's going to work. So I think it's a big swing and a miss that you can't do a la carte pricing. The cheapest thing and just book up to the big front seat. I think people who have flown Spirit a lot are going to be upset by that when they don't realize it. They just click this and they'll be like, "Yeah, I'll add the big front seat later." And then they realize, "Oh, crap, I can't." I don't know if you can upgrade to another package after booking. That's something we should check out in case you do find yourself in that situation where you thought you could just do a la carte afterwards. But yeah, man, I don't think it's Spirit, and we'll see how it plays out, I guess, over the coming couple quarters.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point about playing around with the booking process. I haven't had to book a Spirit flight since these changes rolled out, but I do have some coming up, shorter routes, Vegas to Reno. But I'll fiddle around with the packages and see how they come together. But thankfully, we were able to dig into that Wi-Fi problem you had. You didn't look closely when you were boarding the flight, but Jeremiah will drop the image in here. If you had looked before you boarded, the plane wasn't yellow. It looked a little bit more like this. And for folks who are listening, if you could see the picture, it's a white plane with a gold line on it. And the Spirit logo is spelled United. So that was your Wi-Fi problem.
United.
All right, Mr. Kerr, I got to go catch an airplane. You got any travel coming up?
I do, man. By the time you listen to this, I will be in New York City. I have to figure out how to get up there on a Sunday. I have watched every Sunday for the last month from Atlanta to New York, and so far, every Sunday on every airline has been a absolute disaster. So I'll be honest, man, 48 hours from departure, and I don't have a flight booked because I'm just literally petrified that I'm going to spend my entire Sunday and Sunday night and not go to bed until 1 a.m. Monday, and I don't know what to do because it's just been an absolute disaster trying to get to New York City on Sundays, and I'm just so not looking forward to it.
Yeah, I don't envy you that you keep sharing those images with Howie and I, and every time I see them, they're just as bad as they have been. Man, I'll be living vicariously through you because by the time this episode drops, not only will I have been to Vegas, but I'll be home before you board whichever flight you choose to try and get you to New York. And so I will have a front row seat with a bucket of popcorn, hoping that you make it there on time. But I'll be honest, man, if I'm a betting man, I think I'm buying a Mega Millions ticket before I'm betting on an on-time arrival for you.
I know. It's so brutal. You still got to... Oh, yeah, man. We know. We can go into detail about it. It's going to be... We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. All right. Well, lots more to talk about. We're going to get in a little bit. One last pass at my Japan trip. Talk a little bit about Disney Springs. Fantasy Springs. Can't talk today. And we've got some other fun stuff coming up for you guys. Meanwhile, we're just a couple weeks away from the next meetup for the Slack community, which is at Casa de Pizza. So sign up and get those details if you want to come jump in our pool one last time. See Richard do a cannonball from my deck into the pool. All right, Mr. Kerr, safe travels, and I hope you actually make it to Vegas. Make it to New York on the day that you actually intend to get there.
Me too.
I'm worried for you, man. But we are getting to the end of summer travel. Maybe a little bit of a pull down in the schedule come September and October, and this gets a little bit better.
Hoping so, man. Also, big shout out to the LaGrange High School class of 2024. We've got our 20-year reunion this weekend and just tomorrow after recording. So maybe we can talk a little bit about what that's like because I missed our 10-year reunion. So Blast from the Past coming up this weekend.
I have loved every single high school reunion I've ever been to, which is
zero.
At time of recording is still 0. So I'll see if your wife can't provide us some of those great pictures from your time at LaGrange. All that and a whole lot more fun stuff. But until we upload again, we've got miles to go. Oh, we were doing so good.